Hello and welcome to 18 WJTS Inform. I'm your host, Bill Potter. Joining us through a Zoom meeting is State Senator Mark Messmer. Senator, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Great to be here as always.
Well, I guess this week, are things kind of getting back to normal now, or is there a normal at the legislature?
It's about as normal as it can be. I mean, we've got our seating arrangement in the Senate chamber a little different. We've got some members upstairs in the gallery area, just so we're all spread out, quite well. But I mean, the pace of activity in House and Senate committees and bills moving through on the floor, I mean, it's moving about as normal as it could be. So, I mean, things are a little clunky in your committee hearings where you've got somebody testifying in another room over a remote camera. I mean, that would be nicer to have that, people in the room so you can communicate with them a little easier. But it's working fine. I mean, we are on, hard deadlines on when committee meetings have to stop, so sometimes committee meetings would, bleed over a little longer last year, but because we're having our caucus meetings in the Supreme Court chambers, we have rigid start and stop times in there. So committee meetings, committee hearings tend to be, probably a little shorter than last year most of the time, but it might mean we get less bills moved through, but it's making sure that people prioritize, what they try to, schedule and get moved through. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, well, let's talk about some of the movement of bills, those that you think are interesting and those that you are involved in.
Okay, sure, very good. Well, we had Senate Bill 1 moved out of the Senate last week, and it got out of committee in the House this week, and it'll be up for amending on the floor Monday in the House, and then final passage on Tuesday. And then we will probably, I'm assuming I don't know if they'll get that done Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon, but as soon as they're done with it, they'll send it back to us. They did a few slight tweaks in committee this week, and then we'll do final passage probably on Thursday, and it'll be down to the governor's desk by the end of next week. So that'll be a good civil liability protection bill for folks, everybody. I got a call from somebody on Strassenfest this week and said, "Hey, does Senate Bill 1 help us?" And I said, absolutely. I said, I intentionally made the definition of who's covered by the bill very broad to where every nonprofit group, every civic organization, as well as, businesses of all kinds, schools, churches, everybody's going to be covered from being sued for, them spreading COVID-19, unless you have gross negligence. I mean, that's gross negligence and willful and wanton misconduct. I mean, that's kind of that's the threshold that a lot of civil suits have to meet, to be brought forward anyway. And that's what we've applied here. And then we added with clear and convincing evidence. So if you're going to claim you got COVID from the somebody at the Strassenfest, you're going to have to prove, beyond, with no question about it, and it have to be because of gross negligence. And so it's really going to dampen the possibility of folks dragging people into court, with lawsuits, due to COVID exposure or COVID spreading, and really, that for us to get anywhere back to normal, which it looks like every day the case loads are dropping and the vaccination rates are ramping up, and I mean those are all heading on good trajectories. I really appreciate what the state has done to ramp up their COVID immunizations, and at a highly successful rate. I think we're one of the top states in the country as far as percentage of citizens that have been immunized. I had the state health department run me the numbers, because they've been publishing for the last month, of the people that have been immunized, what percentage are they of the overall, immunization pool? And I said, well, for the 70 and 80-year-olds, I'd like to know how many 70-year-olds have been immunized, how many 80-year-olds have been immunized, as we move through those age groups. And they said, well, we're kind of tracking that, so we'll add that to our state website posting, and not including nursing homes. So the nursing homes are run through a federal program, and we'll get those numbers and blend them with our state numbers soon. But the 51% of the 80-year-olds, excluding nursing home patients, and 57% of the 70-year-olds excluding nursing home patients, have already had their immunizations, which is a phenomenal response. And you probably have another 15 to 20% of the nursing home populations in each of those categories as well. So we're getting our folks immunized at a very, very high rate, and especially targeting that vulnerable population. Added the 60, 65-year-olds this week. And so we'll see that number, start to ramp up as well. And so hats off to the State Health Department for that.
Then other than Senate Bill 1, how are other bills moving for you?
Well, we had 33 other bills move through the Senate this week. 32 were bipartisan bills, and I track that every year, and statistically it's 95+%, 98% of what we do is bipartisan. Just a little note that I keep track of every session. Like I said, Senate Bill 1 is moving up to final passage. I had Senate Bill 175 passed unanimously this week on the Senate floor, and it updates our beer distribution agreement language between companies like Miller Coors, Anheuser-Busch, and there's really no definition in our law of what it says. They can be terminated fairly. Well, you and I could all have a high degree of difference on what we think fairly means. And so this bill sets up what we call good cause language. So if a national supplier of beer to one of our wholesalers, we have good cause that can be what we call, they can have a 120-day notice to clear up deficiencies, maybe getting the old product off the shelves on time, paying their bills on time, things that they could correct. And then we have termination that would allow, pretty much immediate termination if they're bankrupt, if they've lost their state license to sell beer or distribute beer. Some things are immediate dismissal, and some are, whatever, 90 days, 120 days. If they and that means they have to correct their what's causing the concern of the national wholesaler, and then steps to terminate those agreements. And the need for this came, there's a national distribution company called Constellation. And in California, a couple years ago, they distribute Corona in the U.S. across the country. And they went to some of their beer wholesalers in California that had been selling Corona for 25 years and decided they wanted to move Corona to, a different wholesaler, and terminated their distribution agreement, overnight with no good cause. And we could have done nothing, and we could have let the courts decide what good cause or what fairly, means in our statutes. But this just sets up parameters that if somebody's got a long-term, contract with a beer supplier, and there's been, no deficiencies, nothing illegal but done by the wholesaler, there just has to be a notice process, and that calls for fair equity, arrangements between the two parties. So not to say they couldn't do it, but it would not be something they could just unplug overnight. So that passed unanimously and is off to the House. Senate Bill 177 was a bill I authored that came from a story in Boonville from 2014. So the parents of, I think the girl's name was Christy Kelly, disappeared 7 years ago now, and her parents, thought her disappearance, had some, there was some suspicion to, how she disappeared. They found her a month later in the bottom of a strip mine lake about 5 miles out of Boonville. She was in the back hatch of the vehicle. Her vehicle was in the lake, in park. There was wreckage to the vehicle a couple miles up the road, just on the side of the road. Her cell phone she left at the VFW. The last person to see her was the bartender that night. She left her phone in the restroom. He said he didn't see her leave. Her ex-husband was questioned on when she was disappeared during the time of the missing persons case. Failed his polygraph, as did the bartender. But then when they found the body, they never did a criminal investigation. And they asked the sheriff to do a criminal investigation, and he wouldn't. So this bill sets up the opportunity in a scenario like that, where a close family member, direct family member, has a death case like this, not something that was medically related. They can petition the state police. They can take their evidence that they've got and go to the state police, and then ask them to conduct a criminal investigation if either the city police or county or sheriff's department won't. And then, they still have the opportunity to review the evidence and make a decision whether an investigation is warranted. But, currently, there's no mechanism that allows that to happen. So that bill passed out of the Senate unanimously as well on Tuesday, sorry. And then Senate Bill 305, I've got a physical therapist compact bill, and that allows physical therapists in any that work in a state that's a member of the state compact to move from state to state easily, transfer their licenses more easily. And states have to go through a review process to make sure their laws of what it takes to become a physical therapist are basically the same. 29 other states have adopted this compact language, and so we'd be the 30th, and it passed out unanimously as well. And then we also did psychology and audiology and speech language compacts as well as, so we had three different compacts for three different medical communities that all got compact language passed this week. So it just right now we have that compact in place for our nurses, and allows them to move from state to state and get their license reestablished and not have to take, some other job, the 6 months or year it's taken to transfer their license. It works well. It doesn't cost the state, much money to set these up. And so hopefully we'll be the 30th state soon to get that done. And then I had Senate Bill 304 come out of committee, and it's, kind of follow-up language from a bill I did 2 years ago called Senate Enrolled Act 230. And it deals with contract language between that was between general contractors and engineers, and we're applying it to when the state issues contracts from the Department of Administration as well. NDOT already follows that same statute, but not all the public work agencies do. So that was an update. And then one that I wasn't directly working on, but is really, it kind of was proved its way to be worthwhile, through the COVID-19 crisis, was Senate Bill 3. And that expands the use of telehealth, from licensed medical providers across the state, and it allows doctors to interview their patients, to do follow-ups, either over the phone or, through, like we're doing today, Zoom or Skype or some type of electronic, any type of electronic media. Allows them to do patient follow-up without them necessarily having to come into the office. Now that doesn't work in every situation, but you might have, there might be, just very routine things that you can discuss with your doctor, over the phone, and not have to come into the office. And that was done by necessity, at times through the COVID-19 pandemic, and where it's worked and proven itself out. There was telehealth allowed in a few medical trades, but not across the board. And so all of the loosening of the restrictions of that during COVID by the governor's executive orders, we took all of those, and then we're going to make permanent those changes. So that passed out unanimously as well. So a lot of good things moving. We've got one House bill on the calendar next week to clear up it was just a typographical mistake in a bill that was done last year. When you go in to record a deed, right now it requires 2 people to notarize that document, and legally should only be need for 1, but we had because of an amendment that was done and left. So now, notarize it, when you file it, items at the recorder's office, it takes 2 notaries. So that one we're trying to get on the fast track along with Senate Bill 1 and to correct that, just so we don't have people with title searches and stuff down the road that somebody says, oh, you didn't have 2 notaries on it. That wasn't a legal document. So we're trying to clear that up, and it'll be retroactive back to July 1st when that inadvertent mistake was made and put into law. So a good week at the State House.
All right. Well, let's hope that you have a great week this coming week.
I certainly will.
All right. Thank you, State Senator Mark Messmer, who has been our guest through Zoom here on 18 WJTS Informed. Senator, we always appreciate you taking your time. And thank you, folks, for watching 18 WJTS. We are local people watching local people.